On June 6, 1944, as Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy during Operation Overlord, chaos and carnage erupted along the sands of Omaha Beach. German defenses were stronger than expected, their machine guns and artillery cutting down American troops before they could even clear the shoreline. Amid this deadly storm of bullets and explosions, one American destroyer moved closer to shore than almost any captain would dare. That ship was USS Carmick. In one of the most intense naval support actions of the Second World War, unconceived one dare 18 cents, Carmick reportedly fired 1,127 shells in a single hour, pouring relentless naval gunfire into German fortifications that threatened to annihilate the invasion force. Her guns roared so continuously that sailors barely had time to think between salvos. The destroyer's intervention would become a defining example of how naval firepower saved thousands of lives during the most critical hours of D-Day. While history often focuses on the infantry struggling up the bluffs, it was ships like Carmick that prevented Omaha Beach from becoming an irreversible disaster. The story of her extraordinary bombardment highlights the courage of sailors who faced coastal artillery, mines, and the constant threat of destruction, all to ensure the invasion did not fail before it truly began. The landing at Omaha Beach was part of a massive coordinated assault across the Normandy coastline, stretching from Utah Beach to Sword Beach. Yet Omaha quickly proved to be the bloodiest sector. German troops from the 352nd Infantry Division had fortified the cliffs with bunkers, interlocking machine gun nests, and well-concealed artillery pieces. As the first waves of American soldiers approached, many landing craft were destroyed or drifted off course. The pre-invasion aerial bombardment had failed to knock out the strongest defenses, leaving troops exposed. Panic spread as units became disorganized and casualties. Mounted reports reaching offshore commanders painted a grim picture. Some even feared the assault might collapse entirely. In this desperate moment, naval commanders made a critical decision. Destroyers would move dangerously close to shore to provide direct fire support. Among them, USS Carmick surged forward. Closing the distance meant exposing herself to enemy artillery and mines, but staying back would guarantee heavier losses on the beach. The risk was immense, but so was the necessity. Carmick's crew understood that their guns were the only immediate answer to the withering fire trapping American troops against the sea. USS Carmick was a Gleaves-class destroyer built for speed, agility, and aggressive action. Commissioned in 1942, she had already seen combat in the Atlantic before arriving off Normandy. Her main armament consisted of rapid-firing 5-inch guns capable of delivering high-explosive shells with devastating accuracy. On D-Day, these weapons became lifelines for men pinned down on the sand. As Carmick edged closer, some accounts suggest within 1,000 yards of the shoreline, her crew could clearly see the flashes of German gunfire from the bluffs. Spotters relayed coordinates rapidly, and the destroyer began firing in controlled but relentless salvos. The sound was thunderous. Shell after shell arced overhead and slammed into bunkers, trenches, and fortified positions. German strongpoints that had seemed invincible moments before began to crumble under the concentrated bombardment.
Smoke and debris filled the air. The crew worked with mechanical precision, loading, aiming, firing, over and over.
Without pause. Firing 1,127 shells in 1 hour meant a near-continuous cycle of recoil and reload. Barrels heated dangerously, and ammunition handlers labored tirelessly below deck. Every shot carried the hope that another pocket of resistance would fall silent, allowing American troops to advance inland. What made Carmick's actions so extraordinary was not only the volume of fire, but the precision. Destroyers were not battleships. They lacked massive armor and heavy-caliber guns. Yet their mobility allowed them to maneuver closer than larger vessels. Carmick's captain positioned the ship at an angle that minimized exposure while maximizing firing arcs. German artillery batteries attempted to range in on the destroyer, but constant course adjustments made accurate targeting difficult. Sailors reported seeing enemy shells splash close by, sending columns of water skyward. Still, the crew refused to pull back. Communication between shore observers and naval gunners became critical. Army officers used radios to identify the most dangerous positions, and Carmick responded almost immediately. In some instances, the destroyer fired at targets barely beyond the beach itself, risking friendly fire to silence machine guns raking the sand. The psychological impact was enormous. American soldiers later recalled the surge of hope when naval shells screamed overhead and obliterated enemy bunkers. It signaled that they were not alone. Carmick's guns gave pinned units the breathing space needed to regroup and push toward the bluffs. The intensity of firing 1,127 shells within an hour placed enormous strain on both machinery and men. Gun crews operated in suffocating heat, sweat mixing with cordite fumes as spent casings clattered across steel decks. Ammunition supply chains below deck functioned with relentless urgency. Each shell had to be hoisted, loaded, and fired in seconds. Any delay could mean more American casualties on the beach. Officers monitored barrel temperatures carefully. Overheating could reduce accuracy or cause catastrophic failure. Despite these risks, the rate of fire remained astonishingly high. The destroyer's engineering crew ensured engines maintained optimal speed and maneuverability. Damage control teams stood ready in case German artillery found its mark. Every sailor understood the stakes. They could hear distant explosions ashore and see wounded soldiers being evacuated by landing craft. The sight hardened their resolve. Carmick was not merely firing at abstract coordinates. She was fighting for lives unfolding before her eyes. The crew's discipline and training transformed raw firepower into a decisive force multiplier, turning the tide at one of the most perilous moments of the invasion. As the bombardment continued, several German strongpoints overlooking Omaha Beach fell silent. Bunkers that had pinned down entire companies were reduced to rubble. This shift in momentum allowed American infantry units to find gaps in the defenses and begin scaling the bluffs. The transformation was gradual but unmistakable. Where earlier waves had been slaughtered upon landing, later troops found opportunities to advance. Naval gunfire from ships like Carmick created corridors of relative safety, disrupting coordinated German resistance. By midday, the situation, though still dire, had stabilized enough to prevent a full withdrawal. Historians often debate how close Omaha came to failure, but few dispute the essential role of naval destroyers. Carmick's staggering rate of fire exemplified this intervention. The destroyer's presence demonstrated a seamless integration of sea and land forces. Without such direct support, the beachhead might have collapsed, altering the course of the war in Western Europe. Carmick's guns did not win D-Day alone, but they ensured the invasion had a fighting chance. The broader context of D-Day highlights just how critical naval support proved. The Allied armada supporting Operation Neptune included battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and countless support vessels. While battleships delivered heavy bombardment from farther offshore, destroyers like Carmick performed the most daring maneuvers. Their ability to close with the enemy made them indispensable. Carmick's 5-inch guns lacked the sheer explosive weight of larger naval artillery, but their rapid firing rate compensated significantly. In the confined geography of Omaha Beach, precision and speed mattered more than raw shell size. The destroyer's agility allowed it to reposition quickly as the tactical picture evolved. When one bunker was destroyed, attention shifted to the next. This flexibility embodied the adaptability of Allied forces on D-Day. Naval commanders trusted destroyer captains to exercise initiative, and Carmick's aggressive approach reflected that confidence. The ship's actions became part of a collective effort that ultimately secured a foothold in Nazi-occupied France. German defenders were stunned by the proximity and ferocity of the naval bombardment. Many coastal guns had been calibrated to target ships at greater distances, leaving them less effective against a destroyer weaving close to shore. Carmick exploited this limitation. Reports suggest that her fire not only destroyed fortifications, but also disrupted communication among German units. When artillery observers were killed or forced to take cover, coordination faltered. The cumulative effect was devastating. For defenders who had expected to repel the invasion, the sudden onslaught from the sea added a new layer of chaos. Each shell impact eroded both physical defenses and morale. Meanwhile, American troops gained precious time to reorganize scattered units and press inland. The synergy between sea-based firepower and infantry determination gradually tipped the balance. Carmick's relentless bombardment became a symbol of how naval assets could decisively influence land battles, especially in the opening hours of an amphibious assault. By late morning on D-Day, the worst fears of Allied commanders had begun to recede. Though casualties remained heavy, the beachhead held. Ships like Carmick continued firing throughout the day, adjusting targets as troops advanced beyond the shoreline. The destroyer's crew faced exhaustion but maintained operational readiness. Supplies of ammunition were carefully managed to ensure sustained support. Naval gunnery officers relied on continuous communication to avoid striking friendly positions as the front lines shifted. This coordination required remarkable discipline under pressure. Every correction in range and bearing mattered. The events at Omaha Beach underscored the complexity of modern warfare, where success depended on synchronized action across multiple domains. Carmick's extraordinary hour of 1,127 shells was not an isolated act, but part of a broader, evolving battle that demanded adaptability and courage at every level. An element of Carmick's story deserves special recognition. Sailors aboard the destroyer were often young men in their early 20s, thrust into one of history's most pivotal battles. Many had never before experienced combat on such a scale, yet training and leadership guided their actions. The camaraderie forged through shared danger strengthened resolve. Letters written after D-Day described the overwhelming noise and the constant vibration of gunfire. Some crew members admitted fear but emphasized determination. They knew that hesitation could cost lives ashore. Their willingness to push closer to enemy defenses illustrated a profound sense of duty. In the crucible of Omaha Beach, individual acts of bravery combined to produce collective heroism. Carmick's crew exemplified the quiet professionalism that underpinned Allied success. Historians continue to analyze the precise number of shells fired and the measurable impact of each salvo. Whether exactly 1,127 or slightly more or less, the figure symbolizes intensity beyond ordinary naval engagements. The sheer rate of fire highlights the urgency of the moment. Naval records confirm that destroyers expended vast quantities of ammunition during the critical first hours. Carmick's gunnery logs reveal an extraordinary tempo that pushed equipment and personnel to their limits. This intensity reflected a broader strategic imperative. Failure at Omaha Beach would jeopardize the entire invasion. By committing fully, destroyer crews ensured that such failure did not occur. The numbers themselves, over 1,000 shells in 60 minutes, serve as a stark reminder of how desperately contested the beachhead was. In the aftermath of D-Day, as Allied forces advanced into France, the heroism of infantry divisions often took center stage. Yet naval contributions remained fundamental. Carmick continued serving throughout the war, participating in further operations that showcased her versatility. The destroyer's performance at Omaha Beach became part of her enduring legacy. Veterans later reflected on the unique bond between sailors and soldiers forged that day. Survivors from the beach often credited naval gunfire with saving their units from annihilation. These testimonies reinforce the importance of integrated warfare. Carmick's hour of relentless bombardment symbolized the unity of purpose driving Allied forces forward. The strategic consequences of holding Omaha Beach were immense. Securing the beachhead allowed Allied reinforcements and supplies to pour into Normandy, establishing a foothold that would eventually lead to the liberation of Paris and the collapse of Nazi control in Western Europe. Had the landing failed, the war's trajectory might have shifted dramatically. Carmick's intervention, alongside other destroyers, ensured that German defenders could not concentrate their fire unchecked. By breaking the deadlock in those first critical hours, naval gunfire transformed a near disaster into a sustainable offensive. The ripple effects extended far beyond the sands of Omaha. Today, Omaha Beach stands as a solemn memorial to the sacrifices made on D-Day. Visitors walking its shoreline may struggle to imagine the chaos that once defined it. Yet the story of USS Carmick endures as a testament to decisive action under fire. The destroyer's willingness to close with the enemy embodied the spirit of Allied determination. Her 1,127 shells were not merely statistics, but instruments of survival. Each represented a calculated effort to shield troops from overwhelming force. In remembering D-Day, it is essential to honor both those who stormed the beach and those who fought from the sea to support them. The legacy of USS Carmick at Omaha Beach illustrates a broader truth about warfare. Victory often hinges on moments of extraordinary resolve. When the invasion teetered on the brink, Carmick's guns roared without pause, bridging the gap between survival and defeat. Her crew's courage demonstrated how individual ships could influence the outcome of vast operations. In the grand narrative of World War II, the destroyer's hour of 1,127 shells stands as a powerful reminder that determination, coordination, and sacrifice can alter history. On that fateful morning in Normandy, Carmick did more than fire her guns. She helped save a beach, a mission, and perhaps the future of Europe itself.